5 SEC teams in the top 10. Oh, we're putting an end to this today. Okay, before I turn to the SEC, let's do a quick intro. Hi, I'm Alex. This is the Game Addicted Show. Thanks for stopping by. This is the show where we rank teams using the VPI formula from 25 down to 1. And if you're asking, what's the VPI formula? Is it like Power Index? No, it's nothing like that. It's actually a little formula I made up where we take a team's strength of schedule, their opponent's total offense, total defense. We mush it all together, sprinkle a little fairy dust, put it in the oven for about 30 minutes, about 300 degrees, let it sit, cool down, and you take a nice whiff. That is our rankings. So using that system, we rank teams every week and see who's hot, who's not. Swipe right, left, I don't know. And yeah, that's it. Okay, we got the formalities out of the way. So now it's time for me to explain why the SEC is overrated. This is SEC Rant. So the SEC has 6 teams in the top 25, 5 teams in the top 5, 3 of those teams in the top 4. Are you effing kidding me? How do you justify that? I don't even know what the logic is there. So let's start breaking this down, shall we? First, let's go for the easy one, Texas A&M. The only 2-loss team in the top 25. Are we just giving the benefit of the doubt? It's the mighty SEC? No. Texas A&M only has 2 victories over, get this, Texas State, which I believe is 1 and 2 at the moment, and Lamar. You ever heard of Lamar? Lamar is a Division II school. That's their wins. Now we have Florida. Actually, I don't have too much beef with Florida. They're more or less okay. But let's go into Auburn. Auburn is the least respected team in the SEC. They are ranked lower than Georgia, LSU, Alabama. I want to jump into these 3 teams specifically because this is where my gripe really falls. But before that, I should mention that all 5 teams in the top 10 AP polls are actually currently in my top 25 polls for the VPI rankings. So my gripe isn't that they shouldn't be ranked. My gripe is that they are way overrated for what they've accomplished. And speaking of accomplishments, Auburn, who a team I mentioned earlier, is actually more accomplished than all 3 of those teams, and by a wide margin. Their collective strength of schedule up to this point and their victories are better than any one of those teams. Now, I know you're going to bring up like Georgia, who just beat Notre Dame and all that. We'll get into that in a minute, but consider that first. So, is it because of the perception that the mighty SEC is the dominant conference and all 3 of these teams should be eligible for the playoffs? Well, get this. The Big Ten is currently the best conference in college football. They have the strongest strength of schedule. They have the strongest strength of victories. They are killing it. It is not even close how dominant the Big Ten has been starting off this season. Where does the SEC fall? Not number 2. That's actually the Big 12. You're actually number 3. So, no, you can't argue that the SEC is so dominant that they have 3 teams in the top 5. That's ridiculous. Not to mention that it's almost mathematically impossible for all 5 of those teams to end the top 10. There are very unique situations where that could possibly happen, but seeing how good Auburn is early in the season, I'm going to put money that all 3 of those top 4 teams do not sweep Auburn. That Georgia would have to make the conference championship game and play either against LSU or Alabama to run the table, right? Not to mention, Alabama plays LSU, and all 3 of those teams play Auburn, and I guarantee you Auburn's going to upset 1 or 2 of those teams. There is no way any of these teams run without losing at least 2 games. Maybe you get one undefeated team. Maybe you get another one that just loses 1 game. All 3? Are you kidding me? Here's a little fact for you. I looked for the past 10 years for the final regular season rankings. I'm talking about after the conference championships, but before the bowl games. Not 1 team in those 10 years has ever ranked in the top 4 with 2 losses. That's never happened. So again, what's the logic of having all these 3 teams in the top 4? And to my last point, this whole crap about you guys playing 4 non-conference games opposed to, I don't know, the Big 10, Pac-12, Big 12, that all play 9 conference games and have ridiculously strong non-conference schedules. Let's take a moment to look at the SEC's non-conference schedule coming up. Oh, okay. Well, we have Troy, Georgia Tech, Townsend, Florida State, 2-2 Florida State by that matter at this point in time, Tennessee Martin, Louisville, also 2-2 I believe, UAB, Alkaline Christian, New Mexico State, oh, such a powerhouse, Utah State, Samford, not Stanford, but Samford, Western Carolina, University of Texas San Antonio, and Western Kentucky. And would you like to guess which is the only team I've listed that actually is undefeated to this point? It's UAB. That's currently the best team right now. UAB. You're telling me that that's going to improve your strength of schedule? I'm willing to bet by season's end, the SEC will actually be ranked lower than the Pac-12. And the Pac-12 has taken some bad losses. But hey, Cal pulled that big victory over Ole Miss. Don't forget about that. But please leave me some comments. Let me know, how do you justify the SEC having 5 teams in the top 10, let alone 3 teams in the top 4? I would love to hear your justification for that. But with all that being put aside, we wasted too much time talking about this. Let's jump into this VPI rankings. We're going to burn through a few because we're running out of time. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. 25. You schedule week. UCLA saved you. 24. Dude, go home. Nobody likes you. 23. Oh, nice win over Ole Miss. Good job, guys. 22. Oh, you're overrated. That's why. 21. I guess you're all right. I don't know much about you. 20. Whatever. 19. You do more than basketball. 18. Every year they're good. What can I tell you? 17. I don't know if Notre Dame's good. 16. Underrated. 15. You embarrass UCLA and I'll never forgive you. Okay, and we're back. Notre Dame, number 14. You lost to Georgia. You beat New Mexico. Total powerhouse. I don't know what to make of you guys this early in the season. I know you still have some big games against USC and Michigan down the road. I think that'll give us a better idea of how good your team is. But for this week, number 14. Okay. Texas, where have you been? We've missed you. You've been gone for a few weeks. You were in the rankings on our first week, and then you just disappeared. But that win over Oklahoma State put you right back up in the top 15. Congrats, buddy. We missed you. That beating was ugly. I sat down and watched just a little bit of that game, but my goodness, with Michigan, how do you even look yourself in the mirror after that? I don't know. Hey, you survived. You're still in the top 25. Still time to recover. You play in the best conference. I stand by that. I don't even like the Big Ten that much, but Big Ten, best conference in college football up to this point. Hey guys, we're still running low on time. Northwestern was beaten by Michigan State. They're a pretty good team. Top 10. Transition! USC, I don't even know what to make of you. You beat Utah. Your quarterback gets hurt. BYU beat you last week. Utah beat BYU. This is just like rock, paper, scissors, just giving me a headache, though. Will you be winning next week? Will you stay in the top 25? I have no idea how to measure you guys, but thank goodness it's just a formula. I don't have to make that decision. The numbers do it for me. Here I am another week where I have to campaign for Colorado. What more do they have to do? You could justify putting Texas A&M in the top 25, but yet Colorado, who beat a top 25 team in Nebraska, and they beat ASU this past weekend, and yet no respect. How do you sleep at night? Seriously, this makes no sense to me. God, such a headache. Moving on. This video is still too long. Mississippi State, you're underrated. I'll talk about more to you guys next week. Iowa, you had a bye week and you moved up. Good job. Calm down, put down your pitchforks. Listen, Alabama is currently ranked number 6 in the VPI polls. I'm not saying they can't make a run and make the playoffs. All I'm saying is they haven't done enough up to this point to justify a top 4 ranking, okay? So there's plenty of time. You can win enough games. You got some big games still left in your schedule, and you'll make it to the playoffs. It's okay. Just don't start overrating all these teams. It's causing more trouble than it's worth. Just go moving on. dominating win that was by Wisconsin. You know, I was kind of secretly rooting for you guys because I really thought you had a strong chance in this matchup. So you move up in the actually no, you move down in the rankings. It's strictly due to some teams improving their strength of schedule. I'm not saying you're a bad team. Let's give it another week. I promise you, if you keep winning, you'll keep improving these VPI rankings. It's just the formula. It's how it's playing out. Clemson, you're on your way. You had the number one spot. You dropped off a little bit, but here we are at number 4. You're climbing back up that ladder. You keep beating these powerhouse schools like Charlotte, and in no time you'll be back to number 1. So keep it up, guys. Ohio State, what are you doing? You had the number 1 spot. You had to go and play Miami of Ohio. It's just going to hurt your strength of schedule. That's why you dropped. Again, I'm at the mercy of the formula. No eye test, no bias. I just put in the data. That's where you guys fell. But hey, you still play in the number 1 conference up to this point in college football. So you keep winning, you keep representing your conference, and you're going to find yourself in the playoffs. I promise. Oh yeah, that's right. SMU, number 2. Is it ridiculous? I would say no more ridiculous than having 5 teams from the SEC in the top 10. I think this is more logical. But jokes aside, I wish I was more firm in my prediction last week. I saw the analytics, and I'm like, SMU has such a strong chance against TCU. And I just couldn't quite pull myself to pull that trigger. But you guys pulled a huge upset. Your strength of schedule, you're killing it right now. So, hey, I'm not saying you guys will make the playoffs, but, hey, bowl buster, we'll see what plays in the future for you guys. Okay, we've reached the most dramatic part of the video. Who's number 1? Let me know down in the comments who you think should be number 1. And with that being said, week 5, number 1 team is... Are you surprised by this ranking after all that ranting and raving about the SEC being overrated? You shouldn't be, because my goal isn't to just come and tear down conferences. My goal is to present fairness to the rankings, where teams that are putting in the work aren't overlooked by traditional powerhouse schools, where you have here Auburn, which doesn't have that one big signature win, but collectively, up to this point with their strength of schedule, they deserve to be number 1, and I would argue by a wide margin. Not to mention, if Auburn continues to win, they have teams like Florida, teams like Mississippi State, LSU, Georgia, Auburn, all on their slate. If Auburn runs the table, heck, even if they lose 1 or 2 games, they should still strongly be considered for a playoff spot, because collectively, their strength schedule up to this point, they earned that number 1 spot. And that is it. We have finished another week of rankings using the VPI formula. I'm really curious to see what you guys think of this week's rankings. I like that every week that we've done this, the rankings are slowly representing more and more of what we're seeing out in the major polls. This week, we actually have 19 of the 25 teams that are currently in the AP Top 25 polls in our VPI rankings. Yes, they're in a different order, but I'd love to see. Do you guys think these rankings are a little more line of where teams should be? Do you think we're still far off? Did the SEC really deserve 5 schools in the top 10? Is that even mathematically possible? Which it is under certain circumstances. I ran the numbers, but still, I want to get all you guys' opinions. And lastly, who is the strongest conference? Is it the Big Ten? Because I have the data to back it up, but I want to see, based on your opinion, what do you think? But with that being said, thank you all for watching. A like and subscribe will go a long way. I really appreciate the time and support of all of you who followed along this season. And I'll leave it with this. Seriously, thank you. And I'll see you all next week.